gosh, holy crap.
They say bees are harmless creatures essential to nature. But what happens when thousands suddenly attack at once?
Get inside! Close the door!
From massive swarms chasing terrified victims through streets to relentless attacks erupting without warning, these terrifying encounters reveal how quickly these tiny insects can become a nightmare. Here are the 30 bee swarm attacks caught on camera. A beekeeper approaches the back of a truck where an enormous swarm has completely covered part of the tailgate. With protective gear already in place, removing them seems straightforward enough, but the situation is about to become far more uncomfortable than expected. The beekeeper carefully begins removing the massive cluster of bees from the truck, trying to keep the swarm under control. Despite being fully suited, his protection soon proves less secure than he thought, making the removal a much more personal problem. Once bees find even a tiny opening in protective gear, a controlled removal can quickly become a painful and potentially dangerous situation. The body cam footage begins with an officer casually walking down the street, with nothing in his surroundings suggesting that anything is wrong. Within moments, however, his ordinary patrol takes a sudden turn as an unexpected situation begins unfolding around him. The officer soon finds himself surrounded by an aggressive swarm of bees, yet somehow continues walking as though the stings barely bother him. But as the attack continues, his calm reaction begins to change, and the situation quickly becomes far more serious. Repeated bee stings can become dangerous surprisingly fast, especially when an entire swarm keeps attacking with nowhere nearby to escape safely. A shirtless man approaches something on the ground and prepares to remove it with absolutely no protective gear. Despite how questionable the idea seems, he confidently reaches down and manages to lift it. But he's about to discover why this was a terrible decision.
Help me, bicha reta, direita, caralho.
The man is attempting to carry an entire beehive nest, while countless angry bees swarm around his exposed body. Somehow he keeps holding on despite being repeatedly stung, but it quickly becomes clear that his determination can only last so long. Handling an active bee nest without protection is extremely dangerous, as repeated stings can quickly overwhelm even someone who initially seems unaffected. A group of tourists walks along an abandoned railway deep in the forest, recording what seems like a quiet adventure through the wilderness. Everything appears completely normal at first, until something suddenly turns their peaceful hike into a frantic situation.
Stand still, stand still. Stand still. Stand still, stand still. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that!
The tourists find themselves under attack by a swarm of bees, sending most of the group running for safety. One man tries a different approach by staying low and covering himself, but it doesn't take long for his strategy to fall apart. When a swarm attacks far from shelter, there may be nowhere safe to hide, leaving victims dangerously exposed to repeated stings. The video begins with a group of friends in India already scrambling through the area as complete chaos unfolds around them. Whatever seemed like a harmless idea moments earlier has clearly gone terribly wrong, and the person filming captures the frantic aftermath as everyone desperately tries to get away. The chaos started after one of the friends threw a rock directly at a beehive, provoking the entire colony. With countless angry bees now swarming the group, their reckless decision quickly turns what should have been a simple joke into a painful lesson they won't soon forget.
अरे नदीम काट पर रहा मक्के अपनी अरे भागणार का नहीं
अरे गिराना रे ये गाड़ी में
अपने गाड़ी के नीचे घुस गया तो गाड़ी के नीचे घुस गया अपने देखना पड़ता।
Provoking a hive can trigger hundreds of bees to attack at once, turning one reckless decision into a genuinely dangerous situation. The video begins with someone sitting inside a truck as an ordinary moment suddenly takes a disturbing turn. With nowhere to go and only a thin barrier separating them from whatever is happening outside, the person keeps recording as the situation becomes increasingly unsettling. Outside the truck, an enormous swarm of bees has surrounded the window, with countless insects crawling and flying across the glass. Safely sealed inside for now, the person can only watch as the swarm continues gathering just inches away. Thousands of bees gathering this close can quickly become dangerous, especially when a single open door could suddenly leave someone completely exposed. A man steps into his backyard armed with nothing more than a plastic bag and a questionable plan. Someone nearby begins recording as he carefully approaches what he intends to remove, seemingly confident that his improvised method will work without any trouble. The man is attempting to remove an entire beehive using the bag, somehow getting far enough to pull it off nearly. But just when his plan seems like it might actually work, everything starts going wrong, and he quickly finds himself regretting the attempt. Improvised hive removal can go wrong in seconds, leaving someone exposed to an entire colony with little chance of controlling what happens next. What should have been an ordinary parked sports car suddenly becomes the center of a bizarre scene as countless insects begin gathering around it. Within moments, the situation escalates dramatically, leaving the owner with a problem that only keeps getting bigger. The massive swarm turns out to be thousands of bees following their queen, who somehow became trapped inside the sports car. With the colony refusing to leave her behind, getting them away from the vehicle is far more complicated than simply driving off.
In his car and everything.
A trapped queen can keep thousands of bees gathered in one place, creating a dangerous situation that may persist until she is removed. The video begins with three friends casually rapping in front of the camera, completely focused on having fun and recording themselves. Everything seems normal until, without warning, their performance suddenly falls apart, and all three begin running from something off camera. Moments later, the reason for their sudden panic becomes clear as a massive swarm of bees appears behind them. What started as a funny recording quickly becomes a desperate escape, but simply running away isn't enough to bring the chaos to an end. Running from a swarm does not always end the danger, as aggressive bees can continue pursuing someone far beyond where the attack began. The footage begins at the scene of a massive truck crash, but the wreckage itself quickly becomes the least of everyone's concerns. Something far more chaotic has been unleashed across the area, turning an already dangerous accident into a situation emergency crews could barely approach. The truck had been carrying numerous beehives, and the impact reportedly released around 250 million angry bees into the surrounding area. With damaged hives scattered across the wreckage, the aftermath becomes a massive recovery operation unlike anything first responders normally face. Escaping a few angry bees is difficult enough, but millions suddenly unleashed around a crash scene can turn an emergency into something almost impossible to control. The first video begins with a man kayaking when he decides to use his paddle to disturb something hanging nearby. It takes only seconds for him to realize just how terrible that decision was, as the situation around his kayak suddenly erupts into chaos.
Holy Kevin, you're
If that wasn't reckless enough, another video shows a kid preparing to throw a rock directly at a beehive. What happens immediately afterward proves exactly why provoking an entire colony from such a short distance is never going to end well. Provoking a beehive at close range leaves almost no time to escape, especially when hundreds of angry bees can attack within seconds. Passengers looking out the window of a plane notice something unusual covering part of the aircraft's wing just before takeoff, as the plane begins accelerating down the runway. The bizarre sight outside is about to change. A massive swarm of bees had gathered across the wing, clinging tightly to the aircraft before it took off. But as the plane gains speed and becomes airborne, the powerful rush of wind quickly scatters the swarm.
Oh my God.
The strangest part is imagining how long the swarm had been there unnoticed, just feet away from unsuspecting passengers preparing to take off. A crowded protest fills the street as people gather together, seemingly focused entirely on what is happening around them. But without warning, the demonstration suddenly descends into chaos, sending people scrambling in every direction as something completely unexpected interrupts the scene. The confusion turns out to be caused by a massive swarm of bees attacking the protesters. As people desperately try to protect themselves and escape the relentless insects, the already chaotic street quickly becomes even more frantic. With so many people packed together, a sudden swarm attack becomes especially dangerous, as panic alone can create even more chaos than the bees. During a public appearance, former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro stands before a crowd delivering a speech as everything seems to be going according to plan. But midway through his remarks, an unexpected distraction begins interrupting him, and it quickly becomes impossible to ignore. The disruption turns out to be bees gathering around Bolsonaro as he tries to continue speaking. At first, the situation seems manageable, but within moments things begin escalating rapidly, forcing both him and his team to react as the encounter spirals out of control. A bee remover climbs onto a rooftop after receiving a call about unusual activity somewhere around the property. From the outside, nothing seems too alarming, but once he reaches the problem area and begins inspecting it, he's about to uncover something far bigger than expected. Hidden across the roof is an enormous swarm of bees packed tightly together in staggering numbers. With thousands gathered in one place, what initially seemed like a routine removal suddenly becomes a much larger job requiring extreme care.
Crazy because they were so chill at first. I almost took my...
A man approaches something in his yard with a box, seemingly convinced he can handle the situation entirely on his own. His plan looks simple enough from a distance, but once he gets close and starts moving things around, he's about to realize what a terrible idea this was. The man is attempting to place an entire beehive nest inside the box, carefully moving it without causing too much disturbance. For a brief moment, his plan almost seems possible, but then everything begins going wrong, and suddenly getting the nest inside becomes the least of his problems. A round of golf at the Phoenix Invitational suddenly takes an unexpected turn when one player begins reacting to something happening around him. At first, the interruption seems minor enough to brush off, but within moments his reaction makes it clear that something is seriously wrong.
Oh! Bees!
Suddenly finds himself facing angry yellow jackets that repeatedly sting him on the course. What should have been another routine moment during the tournament quickly turns into a painful encounter, forcing him to react as the situation unfolds.
Jason, can we run and get some alcohol?
What begins as a routine public showcase has politicians and reporters gathered closely together as cameras capture the event. Everything seems to be going according to plan, until an unexpected disturbance suddenly sends the entire gathering into confusion. The disruption turns out to be a swarm of bees descending on the group, forcing politicians and reporters to react as the insects surround them. Within moments, the organized showcase becomes complete chaos, as everyone desperately tries to escape. Customers inside a supermarket in Brazil are going about their day when the atmosphere suddenly changes without warning. Within moments, people begin scrambling through the store as something unexpected turns an ordinary shopping trip into complete chaos.
Jesus amado.
A massive swarm of bees has invaded the supermarket and begins attacking customers inside. As the insects spread throughout the area and people desperately try to escape the stings, the store quickly becomes a scene of panic and confusion.
Nunca vi negócio desse. Tá, abelha atacando cofeza. Olha pra isso, lá de fora, vem. Senhorzinho tá que tá.
A quiet day at the beach takes an unusual turn when the camera focuses on an abandoned camping chair sitting near the shore. From a distance, something about it looks strangely different, but getting closer reveals a sight nobody would expect.
They're all just on the arm of this chair.
An enormous swarm of bees has completely taken over the camping chair, clustering across its surface. With thousands seemingly packed into one small spot, sitting down without noticing them first would be a terrifying mistake.
Bees!
Two men approach a beehive with a box, hoping to capture the entire colony themselves. But instead of carefully figuring out how to move it, one of them decides to try a much riskier shortcut, and immediately puts their plan to the test. His brilliant idea is to shake the hive directly into the box, disturbing countless bees in the process. For a moment, they try to stick with the plan, but the angry swarm quickly forces both men into a painful retreat. Disturbing an entire hive this aggressively can trigger a violent defensive response, leaving anyone nearby dangerously exposed before they can escape. A man is casually mowing his lawn when his routine yard work suddenly takes a painful turn. With no obvious warning that anything is wrong, he continues pushing the mower forward until something sends him desperately running back toward the house.
Ow!
The man had unknowingly disturbed a nest of angry yellow jackets, triggering an immediate attack as they repeatedly sting him. Within seconds, mowing the lawn becomes the least of his concerns, forcing him to abandon everything and make a frantic escape inside. Yellow jackets can attack repeatedly when their nest is disturbed, making an unseen colony especially dangerous when someone unknowingly gets too close. A homeowner begins recording after part of the ceiling is opened up, expecting to find whatever has been causing trouble inside. But as the hidden space is finally exposed, the camera reveals something far more unsettling lurking just overhead.
Here we have a nice wee bee colony up in Inverness. Spare bedroom, double window.
Thousands of bees have been secretly living inside the ceiling, packed together in an enormous colony completely hidden from view. With only a thin layer separating them from the room below, there's no telling how long they had been there.
It's quite a big one, this one. Probably close on 80,000 bees, I would imagine. All in your bedroom ceiling. Maybe not the best thing for everybody.
What makes this truly unsettling is knowing an entire colony can quietly grow overhead, while everyone below remains completely unaware of it. A FedEx driver pulls into a driveway and casually walks toward the house with a package in hand. Everything about the delivery seems completely routine, but the doorbell camera is about to capture him making a much faster trip back. As the driver approaches the house, a swarm of bees suddenly sends him running for safety. What should have been a quick drop-off turns into a frantic escape, with the startled driver wasting no time getting away from the property. Even an ordinary doorstep can become dangerous without warning, when a hidden swarm decides that someone has wandered too close. A group of kids spots something on the ground and decides it would be a good idea to throw a rock directly at it. The moment it makes contact, however, they realize they may have just disturbed something they should have left alone. The rock had struck a bee nest, immediately stirring up the colony hidden inside. For a brief moment, the kids watch from nearby, but that quickly changes when the angry swarm turns its attention toward them. And suddenly, standing around is no longer an option. Disturbing a hidden nest can turn dangerous instantly, especially when the people responsible have no idea how many angry bees are inside. A security camera captures a father and his two kids enjoying an ordinary afternoon in their backyard. After climbing out of the pool and heading toward the porch, however, he suddenly feels something attacking his legs. And things only get stranger from there. The father quickly removes his shorts after realizing bees have gotten inside, leaving them behind as he escapes. Later, he returns with his wife to retrieve them, but what should be a quick recovery soon turns into an even bigger problem. Once bees become trapped inside clothing, even a few seconds can mean repeated stings, making panic almost impossible to avoid. A customer inside a busy commercial center begins recording after noticing something unusual spreading throughout the area. What initially appears to be confusion among nearby shoppers quickly turns into a bizarre scene, as thousands of unexpected visitors completely overwhelm the surroundings.
תיזהרי, דבורים.
An enormous swarm of bees has descended on the commercial center, filling the air and covering parts of the nearby stores. With thousands buzzing through an area normally packed with shoppers, customers can only watch from inside as the swarm takes over. Thousands of bees descending on a crowded public space can quickly become dangerous, especially when frightened shoppers have nowhere obvious to escape to. A group of workers begins recording from inside their office, after noticing complete chaos unfolding just outside the building. Whatever is happening has made stepping outdoors nearly impossible, and one look through the windows reveals just how quickly the situation has spiraled out of control.
Look at them on that tree.
What's it called? The bee men. Whatever.
You know what? No, you gotta call,
Outside, a massive swarm of aggressive bees has surrounded the area, filling the air in staggering numbers. With the insects refusing to disperse, the workers can only remain inside and watch as the terrifying swarm continues taking over the property.
This is the county right now. Somebody.
I want to call my man.
Call somebody. Well, Rob, let me tell you something. I don't know.
Being trapped indoors by an aggressive swarm is frightening enough, especially knowing that stepping outside could mean being attacked almost immediately. Two construction workers are working high above the ground on a lift when their routine job suddenly takes a terrifying turn. Completely exposed with nowhere to hide, they soon find themselves caught in an unexpected attack that quickly becomes impossible to ignore. A swarm of bees begins attacking both workers while they remain trapped high on the lift. As the stings continue and panic sets in, the two men become so desperate to escape that they resort to something incredibly dangerous. Flash a pic of the other guy jumping out too, maybe at the end of this segment if possible. Trapped high above the ground, even a small swarm becomes terrifying when escaping the stings could be just as dangerous as staying. A Ring camera outside a quiet home captures what initially appears to be an ordinary day, with nothing unusual happening. But within moments, the view begins to change dramatically as countless tiny shapes suddenly fill the air around the property. A massive swarm of bees has descended outside the home, flying around the entrance in overwhelming numbers. With thousands of insects surrounding the property, simply stepping through the front door suddenly becomes much more frightening.